in the merry old land of Oz.
Hello, and welcome to episode 94 of Rhythm Encounter, the RPG fan music podcast. I'm your host, Mike Salbato, and I can't believe we're on episode 94 already. But also, today, we are talking about composer Masafumi Takada. So, I think some of you will know that name and some of you won't. I think by the end of today, you will be much more familiar with his work. So, like I did in the last episode, I am here as a host, but the other three people with me are the ones who actually brought the goods today. So on the show for the first time, we have Gio Castillo.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Patrick Gann. Oh, Patrick's been here before.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
And also joining us for the first time for him on Rhythm Encounter, is Neal Chandran.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm happy you guys are all here, and we're all three of you were like very excited about this topic. I don't remember who made the card or suggested the topic originally, but it kind of lingered for a while, and it just seemed like a good time to finally jump in and do this one, because we haven't had a composer episode in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, and this is an interesting choice, especially because has anyone confirmed that new game? Is it Code Rain or Rain Code?
Yeah, he is on it. He's going to compose for it.
Yeah, when I was like, oh, this is, same studio, feels like a spiritual successor of sorts to Danganronpa, I was like, I bet they got Takada back for that game. And so when we saw that news about a month ago, maybe, that made me even more excited to do this episode.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what prompted it. I was thinking about that. Yeah, I planned ahead that one, definitely. Yeah. I didn't realize that he was on that game, so that's exciting. Yeah, I think it was announced as like Enigma Archives, but now it's the Master Detective Archives Rain Code, just to mess you up.
Wow.
But yeah, that game looks really neat. Anyway, yes, so we don't have a song from that on here today, but we do have several other titles. Just talk about this a little bit, like all of you. Like, let's start with Neal. Like, what drew you to this episode?
Well, unlike some of my other panelists here, I'm a relative newcomer to Takada's music. In fact, my first and only real exposure to it was when I reviewed the Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth soundtrack several years ago for the site. And that soundtrack just blew me away. I was like, it was like one of the best game soundtracks I'd heard in a long time. And it made me super excited for the game, which was also great, and made me want to seek out more of his work, especially since a lot of the games he's composed for are games that are highly regarded at RPG Fan.
Yeah, that's definitely true, huh? What about you, Gio? I think you were one of the first people like on this topic, on this card.
Yeah, Takada is like one of my favorite composers, I would say. My first exposure to him was Danganronpa, and then I played he's like on a bunch of Suda51 games, including a bunch of games that aren't RPGs, like No More Heroes, and I think Killer 7. And his work on those games is incredible. I'd never heard anything like it. It's really good at capturing this sort of gritty, slightly sinister feel. And I don't know, I feel like his work has so much personality, and I just really, I think his work is one of the few soundtracks that I actively listen to, like on a daily basis, I think, or like, for work and stuff. It's really good for that, especially the Flower, Sun, and Rain soundtrack.
Yeah, I gotta check out the rest after the song you brought on today. It seems like it'd be perfect for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Pat? How far back do you go?
Well, I'm probably in similar shoes to Gio in that I was very much aware of all of Masafumi Takada's work on most, probably not all, but most of the Suda 5-1 games that came out throughout the early 2000s up through like 2010. I followed pretty well. But yeah, the big draw for me is most certainly all the Danganronpa games. I think they have some of the most I mean, the sound palette used, the heavy use of vocals is just, I don't know, there's something almost intoxicating to it, and I really like that. And we'll get to this later, though, but I probably pulled one of the earliest songs Masafumi Takada ever wrote for a video game onto this show, but we'll get to that later, because it's a surprise.
You definitely did, yeah. I mean, it's the first soundtrack that I think he's credited with.
Yeah, he did music for some games that never got retail soundtracks published, but he only did the vocal theme on the game that we're coming up on later.
Okay.
And that was the first thing he ever had published that VGMDB can link him to.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into some music then. Which actually we're starting with you, Pat.
Yeah, I picked a classic that actually I was surprised we hadn't had on the show before. This is Climax Reasoning. It's from the end of Disc 1 of the first Danganronpa soundtrack, though the melody gets reused through all games in the trilogy. Yeah, it's part of the second phase, if you're familiar with how the game works. Climax Reasoning is when you're putting all the pieces of the story together in this sort of comic panel strip sort of sequence.
Now, I meant to ask you this before we recorded, because I looked at the multiple track lists. Are we going with Climax Reasoning or Closing Argument? And why are they two totally different names?
Yeah, I think Closing Argument is probably the iTunes localized, officially localized.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Climax Reasoning was probably, when this soundtrack first came out, just what people translated it to in VGMDB and how it got populated on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Like, no. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning both because you will see it listed both ways.
Yeah, if you're looking at this music on the internet, this happens with a lot of soundtracks, but definitely the Danganronpa trilogy. Almost every song you're going to find two variants of the same title, and one is just one person's translation, one is another person's translation.
Right.
But I think Closing Argument is the official English title.
Gotcha. Wow, that was quite an introduction. But yeah, we'll just put both in the show notes, so why not? Okay, so after Closing Argument or Climax Reasoning, Neal, you have your first song today.
Okay, my first selection is Something Eroding, which is one of the boss themes in Digimon story Cyber Sleuth.
All right, cool. Let's go listen to Climax Reasoning / Closing Argument and Something Eroding.
All right, so I'm here to present my closing argument with some sound climax reasoning. I don't know what that means, but that
Nice
was
try, though.
Yeah, thank you. That was my that was the first song you heard, and that is, to me, a classic from Masafumi Takada. Again, that's from the Danganronpa 1 soundtrack, but you will hear variants of that in all three games, and probably also the Ultra Despair Girls side game. It's a pretty well-known theme. What I like about it is it isn't as up-tempo or as intense as most of the other tracks that play during the trial. In terms of the context of gameplay matching the music, with Climax Reasoning / Closing Argument, it's you already have all the pieces and you're putting them together, and now it's being presented essentially as story. There's nothing time sensitive going on for you as the player, so you can sort of breathe a little easier. The music's still intense because you're talking about a murder being solved, but the slower tempo combined with what's still a very intense driven synth melody, plus so much decoration with the piano, and I think that's something we're going to find throughout these songs is Takada, if he wants to, can just like decorate anything with a piano. It doesn't have to be central, but he'll just put it in there against, synths and strings and other things, and vocals, right? He likes to use these voice samples a great deal. But I think the piano decoration on Closing Argument is probably my favorite thing about it. I think for me as a pianist, I'm so used to, if I'm going to play piano or even hear piano, I need it to be front and center. And someone who can put it in the background, not for comp like you would in jazz, but like as literally as decoration. The frilly thing on the side, like it's genius. He has a brilliant mind to combine instruments and make them effective, and that is my closing argument.
I mean, I think that was a really good way of describing it. It's a very fascinating song, the way that it is like slower paced but intense. Like that's a really hard thing to like accomplish. I mean, to get all of that, both of those things, because they seem like they should be total opposites. But it works. It works exactly the way you described it.
Yeah, I think, a couple months, maybe closer to a year ago, we did an episode on the Phoenix Wright or the Ace Attorney soundtracks, and there is a sort of similar need for a similar type of song throughout that series, and that series has different composers with different styles, but bringing an argument drawing it to a close in a way that's satisfying but still bittersweet because you're talking about solving a murder and determining who the murderer is. Setting music to that is not easy, and I would argue that actually with Ace Attorney, some games did it better than others, and there's at least one where I think it didn't do very well. But Takada really nails it in his own unique style here.
Patrick put it together really well. I was kind of surprised that Pat went with this one instead of the one from V3, which is like a faster, more housey version of it. Although I like how Pat talked about like how the piano kind of like is used differently here, and yeah, it's like it's not quite an accompaniment, but it's like this it's like this icing on the cake, and it's a really cool application of the instrument, I feel.
Yeah, real quick, I had thought about doing the V3 version. That one does sound really good, actually, like just thinking about it in my head. But I really wanted to go with the original, because when I think back on the first time I played Danganronpa and the first time I got to the end of the first trial, and I heard it, like, that moment for me was just like, oh, I had no idea this guy could do music this good. And I had, prior to this, I had heard plenty of the Suda 5-1 stuff, but that song was a real eye-opener for me. So I think that's why, maybe it's just the impact of it for me, something of favoritism or something. But yeah, I wanted to go with the original.
And that song reminds me of why I just loved his music when I first heard it. What I love is that his music is so multi-layered, and even though there's a lot going on in each layer, it all has a chance to breathe, and it never feels overwhelming. It's almost like, when you take a bite of something and then you taste something different every time. It's really great.
Neal, you're exactly right, and I think that's actually a really good segue for your track that you chose for Cyber Sleuth. I a lot of composers are good at layering, but they're often good at layering in the sense of they know what each instrument's role is, and maybe they'll swap out like melody versus harmony here or there. But Takada's approach is completely different. At the end of the day, though, you still get a chance to really feel each voicing and each motif as it goes, and even though it can feel so chaotic, there's actually a structure under it all, especially if you take the time to analyze it. So, I think that was probably one of the best insights I've ever heard about this composer, so thank you, Neal.
Definitely.
All right, are we ready to talk about something eroding? The song title, because I realized that actually weirdly works as a sentence. But
it really does. Because, see, Something Eroding is one of my all-time favorite boss themes. It's one of several boss themes in Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, and it's a recurring one for a special kind of boss called an Eater. Basically, in the context of the game, the cyber world is spilling into the real world and everything's going chaotic, and at those junctures where it spills over, there are these manifestations of glitches called Eaters. They're these gnarled, zebra-striped eldritch abominations, and the music, it's got that dissonant dark wave synth serpentine nature to it. It's dissonant but also still catchy. It feels like something's wrong or not quite right, but it's like a traffic accident. You just can't take your attention away from it. And one thing I loved about this track and the Cyber Sleuth soundtrack overall is just the complex and varied use of percussion. Like, I feel like we were talking about the complexity of Takada's layering, whether we're talking the piano and the vocal, but I feel like his use of percussion is pretty amazing too. It does more than just provide a beat. It's almost like its own voice, like the drums are almost speaking in a way.
Yeah, I think Takada's percussion is very much it's more than rhythm. It is a voice of its own, and there's also a lot of interesting complexity if you study it, especially on this song. There's definitely some examples of polyrhythm, like Under, if you listen close enough, and also like comparing, the beats in which the melody is hitting versus what one of the sort of more metallic drum hits is doing, and you're just like, oh, they're countering, they're playing off one another. And I just want to give a special shout out to you, Neal, because I think the Cyber Sleuth soundtrack would have flown under my radar forever, and I would have just never known about it or heard of it if it hadn't been for you writing that soundtrack review. I don't really pay attention to anything Digimon. I know that this game was something of a breakout hit compared to previous Digimon RPGs, but this soundtrack, so good. and I just want to thank you for, calling my attention to it, Neal.
Yeah, certainly. I had no idea what to expect from it when I first volunteered to listen to it. So I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I'm actually looking forward to the game, and the game turned out to be insanely good as well. So win-win, I guess.
Yeah, absolute win-win.
Yeah. I guess the Eaters didn't show up in a lot of screenshots of the release of the game, because I'm looking it up now, and I see what you're talking about now. Like the weirdly disconcerting music perfectly fits, because these things are bizarre and like just weirdly unsettling. And well, I guess the way you described them makes sense, because they look like they do not fit in this world at all. Like, yeah, very strange. So yeah, this song is like perfect for whatever this is I'm looking at.
Gio, you're quiet over there. What do you think, and what are your thoughts on this very sort of, not necessarily atonal, but very percussive battle theme?
I haven't played it. I haven't played Digimon Cyber Sleuth, and I listened to this like a week ago. It is like atonal. It's kind of hard to grasp like what is going on sometimes in the melody. And I think it makes sense based on Neal's description of like the creatures that you fight. So yeah, I don't really have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if they just showed a picture of these creatures to Takada and were like, imagine you had to fight this, go, and he just wrote a killer song.
I can see it. Yeah. All right, well, there's our first block. Congratulations to our new people. You've made it through a third of the episode.
Woohoo!
Hey.
Go team!
Yes. So our next block, I usually don't try to put people's songs, like the same person's songs, in the same block, and if I can help it, not back to back. But that's just how this one worked out, because I really liked how this episode Tracklist closes out. And all of that's to say that, Neal, your other song is next. So what are we going to now?
All right. This song is called Welcome to This Wonderful Space, which is one of the first location themes in Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth.
Oh, that sounds so peaceful. Is it going to be peaceful?
Yes, it is. Sharp contrast to what we just came from Eldritch Abominations and Murders. This is something totally different.
See, there is a method usually to my track list. I knew those last two songs worked together, and my thought is these next two also work together. So hopefully that's how it plays out for everyone else too. And then, Gio, you finally get your first song. So what are we starting with?
Yeah, let me try to pronounce this in French, but La Fille aux Cheveux it's a cover of a Debussy song. In English, it's The Girl with the Flaxen Hair, and it's from Flowers, Sun, and Rain.
Well, that's definitely better than I could have done the French, so good job.
Nice.
So I'm not going to attempt that. So instead, I'm going to say that we're going to go listen to a song from Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth and a song from Flowers, Sun, and Rain.
So, welcome to this wonderful space plays. It's one of the first location themes you hear in Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. When you first enter the virtual world of Eden in the home hub. I like this track because it's inviting, it's comforting, and it's kind of homey. It kind of feels good because it seemed like the character and the friends he or she were talking to were like almost felt more at home in the virtual world than the real world, and I feel like many folks out there feel the same way. And another thing that gave me the homey feeling for this song was because the initial chord progression reminded me of the bridge portion of the 1945 jazz standard Autumn Leaves, but remixed. When I was taking bass guitar lessons as a teen, my bass teacher had me experiment a lot with the song Autumn Leaves to reinforce my theory knowledge and expand my skills in creating effective bass lines. And I feel like when something new reminds us of something familiar, we're more open to it. And when the character was first going into this brand new virtual world, it just felt more inviting.
It's an interesting insight. I'm curious how other people felt. Most people probably do not have that exact relationship with what may have inspired, or at least has a similar sound to, this older song. So you got this sense of home that in a way that maybe other people would not.
Yeah. I don't know that prior to you saying that, Neal, that I would have thought of it as home. After hearing you say it, it's ringing and resonating properly in my ears as something that could be that. My first impression of this song was, for different reasons, it kind of makes me think about being welcomed into something a little more exotic. It doesn't match the melody at all, but in terms of theming and motif and concept, it's kind of like when Dorothy and pals are first welcomed into the land of Oz, and there's just colors and insanity and things you've never seen before everywhere, and there's that song, in the merry old land of Oz. That's how this song makes me feel.
And I feel like that works too, because for the characters, it is stepping into this, brave new and unexpected world.
Yes, absolutely. And I think even without having played the game, which again I haven't played it, that's how the song makes me feel. Again, there's plenty of synth in this song, so it's more like a 21st century or even 22nd century version of that experience. But it's fun, and it also kind of reminds me, again, with Danganronpa being a central focus point for me with Takada's work, it makes me think of some of the happier songs, when you're just exploring hallways, or in the second game the beach territory and stuff, oh yeah, stuff's going on. It's a little weird, it's a little wild, but it's certainly friendly enough.
Yeah, and it's almost like coming back to that Wizard of Oz analogy. Yeah, it's maybe just a strange world at first, but eventually it started to feel familiar and almost like home for Dorothy.
Absolutely. What about you, Gio? What do you think?
So I said I hadn't played Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, but I actually have, and this is I think this is the first song you hear, so it does sound a bit familiar, and it gives off this kind of I'm on the first floor of this really, really slick little building, and yeah, it's a lobby theme, and it kind of reminds me of a Digimon World 3 in a way. It kind of has a similar vibe. I like it. It's really slick.
I think slick's a good word.
Without a doubt.
Just like your sweet bass grooves, Neal. I meant that with no irony or sarcasm.
Oh,
people,
I know.
People who have heard, those of us who have heard Neal play, we know what's up.
You're too kind, my friend.
Wow. Speaking of slick, Pat.
That's me, baby.
All right. This is going somewhere strange. I'm not saying I don't welcome it, but I was not expecting it. That's all.
Takada's music has that effect, it seems.
I guess so. I don't have a clue how to segue this into Flower, Sun, and Rain. So I think you should do it, Pat, since you got this started.
I'll just say that, romance is in the air, right? No, I'm kidding. Well, yeah, Gio, you picked a really cool track from a really cool game, Flower, Sun, and Rain, which is actually one of the few Suda 5.1 games that fits RPG fans' scope of coverage. And this is an interesting soundtrack because it's arrangements of classical work. And this song is Claude Debussy's Girl with Flaxen Hair, but instead of being an impressionist piano solo piece, it is something altogether different when Masafumi Takada gets his hands on it. So, Gio, why'd you pick this song, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I picked this one because I was it's hard to pick with this album. I was kind of weighing going with a Gershwin cover, Someone to Watch Over Me, or another Debussy song, Arabesque. And I went with this one because it kind of represents the game better. It's like this arrangement makes the song really mysterious. It has a mysterious vibe, and it's a song that's kind of slow to unfold. And as you progress through the song, the melody kind of emerges through the synthscape, when the piano, I don't know how to describe it, the piano when it comes out, and it's so good. It's like a sun, like the sunrise kind of emerging from the horizon, kind of. And I also want. I chose a Debussy song because I want to. I think we talked about this earlier, but Masafumi Takada kind of seems to love Claude Debussy. I think he a lot of those songs, like Clair de Lune and Arabesque, kind of pop up in other debuts, in other soundtracks that Takada composed for. And I'm not sure why that is. I think he just really seems to love that composer. So yeah, I really think this is probably the best song on the album. And it's worth pointing out that it's not all covers of classical music. It's also, there's a bunch of original songs in there, and they're all really good too. Like the title theme, it has vocals, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. I really recommend listening to that. And also, I kind of want to, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like you can kind of draw a connection between Flower, Sun, and Rain and his later work on Danganronpa, especially Danganronpa 2, because Danganronpa 2 takes place on a tropical island like Flower, Sun, and Rain. And if you listen to the soundtrack, he kind of takes elements from that, the way the synths and stuff, it's kind of similar vibe. I don't know. I think, Pat, what do you think about that?
Yeah, the synth instrumentation, there's a lot of intentional overlap. I don't know which one came first, or which one he wrote for first during the development cycles of the two games, but I don't think there's any question that there's that one synth lead that is used really often in Danganronpa 2 for the environmental music, that in listening to Flower, Sun, and Rain, I can hear that same thing being used pretty often. I also want to thank you for correcting me. Yeah, I knew there were original tracks on there as well. I don't know what the breakup is in terms of percentage original versus percentage arranged from classical, but I knew there were a lot of classical arranges on this soundtrack. But thank you for correcting me.
Oh yeah.
And I'll admit, my familiarity with Flower, Sun, and Rain is minimal, but I definitely got that almost like tropical island vibe from that song. Like, I felt like when it would swell loud and then get quiet again, it felt like waves of water, like crashing on the beach. But it wasn't just, happy little waves. I mean, they were intense. Like, okay, something is not quite right in paradise.
Oh yeah, that nails it. There's something really wrong with this island. So, yeah.
As someone, this is only vaguely related, but as someone who listens to a ridiculous amount of relaxing, lo-fi, other related things on YouTube, compilation stuff, I don't feel like I've ever heard these ones pop into there. So that's not really scientific research, me saying that this soundtrack is not very well known, but stuff like this would really fit well. So it is surprising to me that I haven't stumbled across it more. And there's two soundtracks, or the two albums grouped by theme, because this one's from Water for relaxing time, and the other one is Shine for high time, which tells me the other one might be a more upbeat album, or is that just a fun name?
I don't really I'd never really felt like a theme in the album. I don't really know how they're divided. I don't know why there's two albums, or there's two divisions. I think that this, I don't know. I think it might be in order of when they play in the story. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Patrick knows?
I'd have to go look. My gut instinct and old memory from when I was looking at the listings for the two albums about a month ago was that it was kind of like Nappletail's Illustrated Guide to the Fairies and Illustrated Guide to the Monsters. It was a nice way to stylize a soundtrack and put it into two releases instead of one, but the theming wasn't really significant in terms of the track selection.
Okay. Yeah, usually when I have a very specific thought or question on this, I look at VGMDB and click on the little discuss tab, and inevitably, eventually, see Pat, who loved to comment on something 12 years ago. But there is no VGMDB discussion on either of these, and the two albums
I didn't review them yet.
And the two albums were released 2 years apart, which is also strange.
Now that is strange.
Yeah.
Can we pause real quick and I can actually give you the answer in about 90 seconds?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Amazing.
All right. I like that you have a time frame on that, but
yeah, it shouldn't take more than so.
"45 seconds later."
I have an answer.
Okay. What do you got?
Water for Relaxing Time was basically going to be the only soundtrack released for Flower, Sun, and Rain when it came out. But they didn't release an entire soundtrack. There were missing tracks. So, 2 years after the game first came out, Shine for High Time wasn't even released by King Records, who had published the first soundtrack. It was an original publication from Grasshopper, Suda51's company, to get the rest of the songs out there.
Oh, interesting. All right.
Yeah, so basically Water was an incomplete soundtrack, and Shine was, hey, let's get the rest of the music out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy when that happens.
Yes, complete soundtracks are my thing. I'm all for it. You remember when Wild Arms soundtrack first came out in 97, and it was oh, this music's so great, but it's 40% of the soundtrack, and then they released a 2-disc complete, and we were like, thank you.
Oh shoot. Okay. Yeah, I actually forgot about that because when we did our Wild Arms Shadow Hearts episode, I was comparing songs from Wild Arms to songs from Alter Code F, and I'm like, wow, the track list is strangely much longer in this one. So I must have had the original one disc version.
That was probably it. Though Alter Code F did have new compositions as well.
Yeah, but not
not
3 times as much music.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm definitely going to have to listen to more of this soundtrack because it's certainly not one that I was really like attuned to back in 2001 when this game came out. But
yeah,
it's a really interesting and enjoyable arrangement. So I would like to listen to more. All right.
Are we ready for the final wave?
That one prompted way more discussion than I was expecting, so that was fun. All right. Yeah, the final wave. Yeah, I have some thoughts about our last track here, but I'll wait till we get to it. So, Pat, what is your second song today?
So I have chosen a song from a game that some of you English speakers might know as Vanguard Bandits, published by Working Designs, but its original title in Japan was Epica Stella. But it is a mecha robot RPG, and most of the soundtrack is not written by Masafumi Takada, but there is an ending vocal theme that was written by Masafumi Takada, though not sung by him. It's a female vocalist. I don't know who it is. I'd have to go look it up. But you are going to be hearing the ending theme song for Epica Stella. It's called Tomorrow to Start.
What a great title. And then Gio, your second song today is
it's a bonus track from a album called The Silver Number 2 plus Parade. It's an album of remixes and live tracks. The song is called Hoppers Volume 1.
All right. Oh boy, I really enjoyed this song. I know I'm only here hosting and didn't bring songs, so I'm only sort of allowed to talk about them, but this was a fun one. And much longer than I normally allow or recommend we bring on, but because we have a shorter track list today, I figured it was a good thing to end on. So
we're gonna broadcast this one in its entirety for the show.
Yeah, I mean, unless we cut just the first part, I don't know.
I'm cool with the whole thing.
No, I think we should keep it.
Yeah.
So
these are I'll explain later, but there's a reason why I picked this one.
Okay. All right. Let's go listen to Tomorrow to Start and Hoppers Volume 1.
「
All right, and we're back. I know some of you guys are probably still recovering from that amazing track from the Silver Number 02 Plus Parade. But I want to call back a little further to this classic Japanese vocal track, Tomorrow to Start, the ending vocal theme for Epica Stella, known as Vanguard Bandits in North America. It's a vocal track from singer Yukiko Manaka, though not really a singer. As far as we can tell, voice acting is her main gig. So it's probably a character track from the game. That is, a character from the game being asked to sing the game's ending theme, which is very typical, especially for 90s JRPGs. I think the thing I find most interesting is that this is the only song that Takada composed for. This is an early work of his. It goes back even further than Flower, Sun, and Rain. This is a PS1 RPG, late 90s. And in my opinion, it's not the world's most interesting vocal track. There's a lot better ones out there in this world. What is interesting is, compared to the other songs we've listened to tonight, and this is a point I wanted to make earlier, but I think I failed to. One of my favorite things about a composer is when they are capable of demonstrating true versatility. And when you compare and contrast the different songs we've listened to up till now with this vocal track, as far as the instrumentation is concerned, it's like, oh, like, could he do a standard ballad, or is Takada confined to the realm of the weird? And I think this song proves Masafumi Takada is in fact not confined to the realm of the weird, and can actually do a pretty standard ending ballad for a game pretty spot on. And there's really not much more I want to say about it than that.
That's really why you brought it on.
I'm dead serious.
Okay, no, I mean, that's good.
I'm amazed by how normal he can be.
Yeah.
I'm used to him not being that.
Okay, I did not know that was your goal. I enjoyed the song, and it didn't stand out quite as much to me as things like other things of the time, like, Lunar's vocals or something like that.
Right, yeah, compared to Lunar, it's just kind of like, eh.
But I like that. I mean, I think that's a good point. It really does show some range in his work. So, I mean, I'm good with that.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, relative to the other songs we've been listening to and Takada's body of work, this is definitely an underrated track of his. And I think Vanguard Bandits was a very underrated RPG. I mean, back when it came out, it was under the looming shadow of like Final Fantasy Tactics and even Tactics Ogre, which were the strategy RPGs of the day. And I played Vanguard Bandits and I was like, this game's really fun. It's, why does everyone hate it so much? So I feel like, all right, hey, underrated song for an underrated game, and I think both are good.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so long, I don't even remember what the consensus was on that game back then.
Yeah, people either didn't like it or completely forgot about it.
Oh, you reviewed it?
Yeah, I think that was one of the first reviews I did before I even joined the staff.
You gave it an 84, so not bad.
For me, I'd never really heard of this one until Pat posted the song on the Trello, and it kind of blew me away because I listened to a lot of city pop or like vaporwave, so it's kind of in that vein, although it's a bit more ballady, and I don't know, I really like it. It kind of reminds me of like the soundtrack to Macross with Lin May, and it made me so interested in Vanguard Bandits that I bought it for the Vita. Like I won the Staffel like the RPG fan staffel, and then I used that money to buy this game. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to play it. I think this song is really cool. So yeah.
Nice. Well, see, that was an unexpected consequence, Pat.
Yeah, that's a great consequence. I think it's cool to get a lesser known name out there. It's a cool. I think it's a good game. I don't think I've valued the vocal track as much as you did, Gio, but I think comparing the style to like Macross and yeah, you had said City Pop, like yes, most definitely that's what we're hearing.
And what's interesting is it reminded Gio of Macross, yet the game itself is a mecha-based game, kind of like Escaflowne.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, the art style does remind me of Escaflowne as well.
I'm not going to get too far into this, even though I like speculating over this kind of stuff. But it's so weird to me that, you know, Working Designs has been, you know, gone for so long that this is a game you can still buy. I mean, it's like, I think Sony published it. Like Sony somehow has the rights, and they're the ones that released it, right, Gio?
Yeah. Yeah.
But why? Like, why that? Like, why did the publishing fall to them on this? And what happened with the others? Like, I mean, of course, I'm mostly thinking about things like Lunar and like other Working Designs things that kind of just have disappeared, and who has the rights anymore. So like, it's bizarre to me that of all the Working Designs games, like this is one of the ones that Sony's like, yeah, we're going to keep this available.
Alundra was published on the eShop as well.
Oh yeah, is that also by Sony?
I think it's listed as Sony published.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
And the Arc the Lad games.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, some of the Working Design stuff makes it and some doesn't, and it doesn't. I don't know why.
I know, it's weird. Okay, sorry. I said I wasn't going to do too much of a tangent. I just like, I had to like get that out of my head, and like, this is still a game you can get. Although, wait, can you now, or is that cut off over for the Vita?
I think you can still purchase and download, but I think,
okay,
yeah, it stops at PS3 and PS Vita.
Okay.
But the store's still up. It's not like the situation we have right now with 3DS and Wii U.
Right.
Yeah,
just you can't play them on the newer ones.
Yeah, which is a shame. They should get on that.
I know.
It can't be that hard to emulate PS1.
Well, I mean, I assume if the PS3 has the power to emulate the PS1, that the 4 and the 5 probably could handle it too.
Yeah, should not be a problem.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure where we really left off, but I assume we're done.
Go forward, yeah.
Yeah, we're done talking about that song, so let's talk about Hoppers Volume 1.
Yeah, I went with this one because it was like a way to cheat out like 2 songs in one, because technically it's 2 live tracks in 1 track. So the first track is the Silver Case main theme, and it's like a really long, really epic rendition of it with guitar like going wild and like cool things going on with like a voice generator or something in the middle. I really like it. It's awesome. And then the second one is a cover of it's not a cover. It's like a performance of Matchmaker from the 25th Ward, which is a sequel to the Silver Case that only came out here in the West in like 2018, I think. And so this is a cover of like the original version of the song, which was like a mobile phone exclusive from 2005. So it's like Nokia phones and stuff. I think I've heard the original version of it, and it's quite good for a mobile. Like, you know, it's supposed to be like played on a mobile phone. It's quite good. And so I wanted to make sure that we covered both the Silver Case and the 25th Ward somehow. So this was the way to do it.
Oh, okay. That's very clever of you.
Yes, tricky indeed.
I think this one actually bookends really well with Pat's first pick, because it's another good example of his work where there are a lot of elements happening in this song all over each other, and it's another thing where that should compete and it should feel noisy, but it really doesn't. It all works, and it's very impressive to me.
Yeah, there's something about it that feels the whole way through. Like the whole way through, it feels it's this nice tension between noisy and settled. And the metaphor that I'm going to use is not a food metaphor. It is hot tubs. You're in a hot tub. It feels nice and warm. You got the bubbles going, right? And the bubbles, that keeps, there's motion, right? So it's not just still water, it's motion. But you're still calm. You're still soothed. Smooth. That's how I feel about both portions of this song. And is this a live? Was this a live recording?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because there's 3 different albums that you can find for the Silver Case. O1 is the Silver O1 is the essentially the OST. Then there's an O2, I think it's called Destruction or Destructor, and that's an arrange album that I think is mostly studio arrange, whereas O2 Plus Parade is a live album. And yeah, or at least this track is live from it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, with house music, yeah, you have stuff that's pre-programmed, or you're using turntables or whatever you're doing to keep it going. But it's still impressive to be able to put out what they put out and keep it sounding so crisp and so professional, just in terms of the recording quality, you know, for a live track. And I don't know. The track's 12 minutes, but I feel like the time flies by because it's just enjoyable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Truth. Well,
Neal, what's up?
yeah. Again, everything you guys said about that song, I was thinking. I mean, it was epic. It had all these incredibly intricate layers that you think shouldn't go together, but they do. And to me, it just encompasses everything we love about Masafumi Takada's compositions, everything we've talked about and more. It's just, I don't know, words can't necessarily express like how cool we think the music is, but I feel like that track does it. It's everything.
I like it. Yeah.
It was a darn good pick, Gio. Thanks for cleverly slipping 2 songs in one.
All right. So that was our show today. I know, like I said early on, I'm sure I'm not the only one who wasn't super familiar with a lot of this person's work. You know, I know some of this today, but I definitely didn't know things like Flower, Sun, and Rain. So I know for me, along with I'm sure a lot of listeners, that this was very educational and very entertaining. So I think we all have a lot of things to go listen to after this, because I would like to check out more of these soundtracks. In the meantime, we should wrap up this show, though. Coming next, in the next couple of weeks, we thought it would be really fun to do a Castlevania episode with Halloween coming. So we're doing is it long awaited? I don't know. I've been wanting to do it for a while, so at least for me, Castlevania was long awaited.
Let's say overdue.
Overdue, yeah. Actually, both of the next episodes are probably considered overdue. So episode 95 will be Castlevania based, and following that with episode 96 is an also overdue episode with Pokemon. We've definitely had many Pokemon songs on over the years, but we've never done a full episode for it. So I'm looking forward to that one.
I am looking forward to that one too. I'm really looking forward to it, actually.
Yeah.
Same.
I did not need much convincing to get people on that one. I feel like people joined that one very quickly. It's like, oh yes, I would like to talk about that. So that's going to be fun. If you have thoughts on this episode, on our future episodes, on Castlevania, Pokemon, like whatever you want to talk about, you can email us, email the show at music@rpgfan.com. If you'd like to email me personally, you can get to me at mike@rpgfan.com. Pat, what's the best way for people to contact you?
I keep my DMs open, so you can contact me publicly or privately on Twitter at GameOdactyl. That's game, the letter O, and dactyl.
It's always the same, and I'm always entertained by it. How can people reach you, Neal?
NealCH@rpgfan.com. That's NEALCH, or I'm Neal CH RPG fan and on the Discord.
Awesome. And how about you, Gio?
I'm on Twitter. You can find me at 10bstar, TENBI star, or you can email me at GOC. Oh, no, wait. No. It's GO. It's just, there's no C, if I remember. Yeah. It's GIO at rbgfan.com.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So also, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to also check out RPG Fan's other shows. Every other Monday, alternating with Rhythm Encounter, is our general and current RPG news podcast, which is Random Encounter. And then running every Thursday is... I enjoy all of our podcasts, but I think I have to admit that Retro Encounter is probably our star podcast because it is definitely the most popular and the most prolific. And that's for good reason, because Solosi and everyone else who contributes to that show puts out a great episode every week on old games and other stuff in between. So let's see. When this goes up, they'll just posted an episode on The Secret of Monkey Island, and they're in the middle of an adventure game month right now. So there'll be a few more episodes on adventure games coming out through the rest of October. So definitely look forward to that. There's some good stuff in the works. If you would like to help support our show, we would appreciate if you could review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever it is you listen. Review, subscribe, thumbs up, share, get the word out. Whatever you can do, we appreciate it. And now we really come to the end, and we have a bonus track, which I typically give it to a new person. We have 2 new people to the show today, so I had to pick one. Gio, even though you technically already brought 3 songs on with your last track, you're still doing a bonus track. So what are we closing out with?
Yeah, so this one's from Danganronpa V3. It's called Despair Searching. It's got that noir-y vibe. It's kind of is similar to the Silver Case in a way. Yeah, everyone knows a big part of Danganronpa is about trying to figure out who the killer is. So this is the perfect soundtrack to that. I think it's my favorite of all the versions that exist. So yeah. Hope you guys enjoy that one.
Oh yeah, I mean, I listened last week when you shared it with us, and I did. I think it's an awesome song to end on. All right, we're gonna go close out with Despair Searching from Danganronpa V3. Thank you everyone for listening, and all of you 3, thank you for being here. And our 2 new people, good job on your first time.
Yay. It occurs to me that I'm recording with like three of like the most tenured people in RPG fan right now.
Aw.
Yeah, we have been around like pre 2000,
Yeah, right.
but just because we've been here a long time, I mean, forget about all that. You know, your contributions show that you know your just as well as any of us.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I definitely heard that wrong. I definitely at first thought you said the most tender people. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet.
That too, Mike. You are very tender.
Well, just because like Pat and Neal, you guys are just so like complimentary towards each other tonight. It's very heartwarming. So